Welcome to Topline, the podcast for the best founders, operators, and investors in B2B tech. Every week, AJ Bruno, Asad Zaman, and me, Sam Jacobs, will break down what's important for you to know to be the most well-informed professionals in the market.
When your product doesn't show up until the second or third sales call, you lose momentum and deals. Walnut fixes that. It gives your reps interactive demos they can personalize and use so every buyer sees a consistent story every time. The result? Faster cycles, higher conversion from demo to op, and better forecasting based on real product engagement, not guesswork. You ramp reps faster and close more without adding SE headcount. Go to walnut.com and hit get started to see how you can turn revenue targets into reality with the team you already have.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Topline. It's episode 113, and we've got a great episode lined up for you today. We've got a very special guest. His name is Asad Zaman. He's the CEO of Sales Talent Agency. We've also got another special guest, AJ Bruno, the CEO of QuotaPass, and I am the final special guest. My name is Sam Jacobs, and we are your regular co-hosts. Welcome, everybody.
I hear that. I thought we were demoted for a second.
Nobody's demoted.
Promoted to guest.
We are all part of the same team, my brothers. And we're moving the conversation forward around go-to-market.
That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. Yeah. So, Asad, how are you?
I'm good. I had a tough couple of days last week in the light of transparency, which is what we do here, but I've reset to some extent.
Asad, do you feel like, because we all go through this, but when you have these tough few days, do you feel like you're super far behind on everything else in life?
I think depending on what you're going through, sometimes it just takes the wind out of your sails, right? We all run at a pretty significant pace, I think. And so our bodies are generally close to exhausted, and you go into the weekend, you rest a bit, you come back, you fight. So if you remember Street Fighter, you would have a couple of rounds in Street Fighter, and round two you would start at 80%. We're always like 50, 60, 70%. So sometimes if things come out of nowhere, they can be like a gut punch, and so it can feel like fatigue, and then you get stuck a bit, and then you do fall behind, because if one day you're not productive, then you're behind, right?
Chun-Li, that was my character. She had that awesome kick. Man, she had that kick. She crushed it. Street Fighter.
I'm sorry to hear you're tired, Austin.
No, but now I'm good. I went and got NAD injections on Sunday. It's cellular regeneration and glutathione injections, which is anti-inflammation. So I feel fantastic.
Are you still doing Athletic Greens?
No.
Done.
But I take like 20 pills now.
20?
Yeah, so I've got my own Athletic Greens now.
Fair enough. AJ, how are you?
I'm great. We're in Philadelphia for a management offsite, talking all things ideal customer profile, product market fit. We have just such a great management team. We all read The Advantage, which was Patrick Lencioni's book, and we're doing the why of QuotaPath, little Simon Sinek, and it's been a lot of fun. We're just getting started today. We have 2 days. Management team's big. It's 10 people. Wow. It's a big management team.
That's in like every week. That's your ELT?
Yeah. Do you think I should cut some people? Should we have that conversation right here live? They can listen to the next episode of Topline.
Exactly. Let's do a quick performance review. We know you like Wyndham, and we know you like Ryan Milligan. Everybody else is on the chopping block.
Graham is Graham. So
good old Graham. Of course we have Graham. Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
He looks like, yes. What a great, yes.
I'm going to change Graham's Slack photo to Philip Seymour Hoffman and see when he first notices.
Underrated actor, one of the best.
Well, underrated? He's
R.I.P.
I think
R.I.P.
Even though he's rated, I think he's underrated for how great he was.
Wow. Well, you might be in the wrong cinephile circles, Asad, because everyone I know thinks he's one of the greatest actors of his generation.
Sam,
Rest in peace, Phil.
Hang out with your friends.
I'm good. I was reflecting last night as I fell asleep. I don't know that, but this is something we're going to talk about. I don't know that being a CEO is always about working 15-hour days. I was thinking about what that means for people that do it, and it's probably technical founders that are coding or that are project managing the development of code. But if you're non-technical like me, it's not really about working 15-hour days, although I do work a lot. It's really about like trying to make the right strategic decisions and allocate the right capital, time, and energy to what you're trying to do. And I feel I'm making the calls. We're doing a pricing and packaging exercise. We're doing a messaging exercise. We are launching Pavilion Gold. We are gearing up for this major 10-year anniversary campaign. We hired a CRO. I think, if you look at, I am taking decisive action, as John Mark Shaw would say. So I feel one way or the other, it's a lot more fun doing this than standing on the side of the highway watching other people drive by.
10 years, Sam. What's the date? What's your birth date?
I would say it's probably July 2016. So it'll be July 2026, and we will celebrate.
Great things happen in July.
I agree
Some
with
of these people were born in July. Some companies, July is a good month.
We are at GTM in DC this year. We're kicking off our 10-year anniversary campaign, and it'll culminate in GTM 2026, which will be in New York City, where it all began. And so I'm really excited for that. And that's it. Asad, I will hand it over to you to kick us off today.
Okay, we've got a fun docket. So let's start with OpenAI announcing a bunch of integrations last week. So basically, they announced a number of one-click integrations utilizing the MCP protocol that Anthropic had put out, which, for those who don't know, think of it as a master API or a standard. Our economy is built on standards, especially the internet. And so this is one of those that everybody has adopted. And by what they've done is they've made it so that you can click a button in ChatGPT and integrate G Suite, Microsoft Teams, Dropbox, bots, and most interestingly, at least for us, HubSpot. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that after you click this button and HubSpot's connected to ChatGPT, you can just go into ChatGPT and query HubSpot. And the capabilities will evolve as they roll more of this out. But in essence, you'll be able to do things like ask ChatGPT to run a win-loss analysis on the East Coast mid-market sales team. And instead of asking Bobby on your RevOps team to run and put this research together for you, now Deep Research can do it for you and present the information to you really quickly. And so this is interesting. This is exciting. I imagine it's a little bit petrifying for companies that are the systems of record as well. And so curious to get your thoughts on this. Sam, have you seen this? And what are your general thoughts on what this might mean for the companies that now sit on the other side of ChatGPT, the Salesforces, the HubSpots, but eventually the ERPs and the HCMs and all these other platforms? What are your thoughts on where we're going with this?
I think, I think that ChatGPT still is having an interaction layer on top of the system of record. I don't know necessarily obviates the system of record. But so it, that feels to me like if ChatGPT was building a database, ATO companies like that can spin up. I think actually Doug Campbell-John's working on a new AI-powered CRM called Coffee.ai. So I think there's this world where you can create the concept of a CRM by integrating a bunch of non-database tools that are maybe your email, your calendar, and other points of interaction, and then that can form a new database sort of dynamically, and then you can query that using some kind of natural language interface like an LLM. But for now, a ChatGPT unconnected, first of all, I appreciate the promise of asking ChatGPT, build me the win-loss report. My instinct is that it definitely wouldn't work right now, and maybe it'll work to access a pre-existing report, and you can say, what does this pre-existing report do? And maybe that'll work, but maybe it won't. But I don't know that it replaces the actual underlying data storage or like the system architecture that keeps all of your customer information. So I don't know how worried but it certainly seems like a value extraction layer, right? Like ChatGPT / OpenAI is extracting one key part of the value, which is your ability to interact with the system in a way that some product designer, intended. What do you think, Austin? I'm going to hit it back to you.
I think if you think of pricing power, you think of all the value that you're providing to a customer. And as you said, a significant amount of that value is being taken away. And I would imagine, if you play the thought exercise that these systems get 2-3 times better over the next 12 to 18 months. And so maybe it can't do it today, but they'll be able to do it. Let's just play that thought exercise out. In that world, it basically relegates a HubSpot and a Salesforce to really just a database. And if the value was we have a database and we have these workflow solutions on top of the database that enable you to interact with the database and get value out of it, those workflow solutions, they're not that valuable anymore, because as this gets better, why wouldn't you use this as the primary way to interact with the database? And feeding information into it will just be things following you through meetings, updating the database automatically. That's what these AI CRMs are building today. And if HubSpot and Salesforce want to be relevant in the future, they'll have to have that as well. So it really separates you from the database. And that's interesting because that changes the business that they've got. And it wouldn't be great for a revenue per customer perspective, right? Like customers will really question, should I be paying you the same amount if half the things that I paid you for now I'm doing through this other thing? Like, I think it'll create some interesting tension there. AJ, what do you think? Like, you've been playing with this a bit.
I've got some thoughts. First off, are you drinking coffee out of a wine glass?
Yeah.
Iced coffee, no less.
I saw that and I was like, what is going on over there? Okay, now that we cleared that up, we can move on. It sounds like Bobby is donezo, I think. Bobby's not going to make it. I think you're saying that these CRMs, HubSpot, will be relegated. I actually think it's a brilliant move by HubSpot because there's these tools like Day.ai. They are former HubSpotters that are building a AI CRM. We've seen a bunch of these. I think it's Ativo or that's building one as well. These AI first CRMs. What HubSpot is doing is saying like, no. ChatGPT and Breeze, which is their AI, they're gonna do all of that heavy lifting. I'm still in the mindset where, yeah, they're a database, but what they have is horizontal distribution and platform. And that is still what is the value of these CRMs. And that's really an important part of it. The third thought here is I did connect both Gmail and Drive and my calendar. Gmail, it's kind of worthless right now. I've tried to get some insights. It's hallucinating. I did put my calendar, first and foremost, if you're out there, one, you need the enterprise, and you want to try this, you need the enterprise version of ChatGPT. Two, you need to have deep research turned on. I have balloons going off in mine on my screen. Great. You need to have deep research turned on. And three, you need to enable it on the tools. It's actually kind of confusing. And when you ask ChatGPT how to do this, it doesn't tell you. I had to ask Graham, and Graham was like, oh, I had to Google it. So just FYI. Here's the cool thing, though. When I did the calendar deep research insights, it took blog posts and Topline episodes that we've done on my calendar and correlated it and said, AJ, you have said that your golden hours are 7 to 9 a.m., where you get 3 hours. Let me correlate that to your calendar and see if that's true. And I thought that was pretty badass, honestly. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool that it did that. Yeah. So I think the potential is massive. And it said like 72% of CEOs' calendars look like this. This is what yours looks like. It did hallucinate a little bit. It was like, you spend a lot of time with your EA and planning with your EA. And I'm like, I don't have an EA, so I don't know where it came up with that.
I think it hallucinates all the time. Like, I feel like we're like, oh, it did deep research. It must be accurate. Nobody is, no, well, it has citations. Click through to the citation and figure out if it's telling the truth. I feel like the number one characteristic of an LLM is not accuracy. It is confidence. The thing that an LLM is very good at is persuading you that it's right. It is not right most
I
of the
did read
time.
it and I reread it and I'm like, oh, maybe it's thinking back to 4 years ago. I'm like, it's probably right. It knows what it's
You're
talking about.
like, synthesize my emails. AJ's like this. You're like, sure. I mean, I guess I could
Sounds
definitely
right.
be like that.
It's painting me in a really good light, Sam.
Yeah,
Don't
exactly.
Sam, don't yuck on my yum right now, okay?
Sam, you did something where it came back with like a data point. You made a post that was really interesting about this. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit of what happened?
Yeah, it's just something that's been on my mind a lot. And I talked to one of my mentors, Jonathan Glick, yesterday, and we were echoing the same idea, which is I have this workflow where I add all of these weekly updates from my ELT, which is significantly less than 10 people. And then I compile it into this one instance, this one GPT. And the point of it is that it's supposed to pull out all the relevant data, synthesize everything, and create one weekly update that I can then send to the board and send to the company. And inevitably, there are data inaccuracies. There's a couple things that happen every time it does it. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because I see this in a lot of different ways that you interact with an LLM. We describe LLMs and ChatGPT in a way, and maybe it's just because I'm using 4.0. I don't know. Maybe it's model dependent, but I don't think it is, because it's also referenced in that same article that the Apple researchers put out this week, where so first of all, it's just making up data points. So one of the things is that May was not particularly strong for Pavilion. And it said in the summary analysis, hey, blah, 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 rep finance and operations, Stripe credit card collections were up 20% month over month. I'm like, that's weird. Let me ask it, like, where did you get that? And it starts, it says reviewing project files, reviewing date, whatever. And then it's like, oh, you know what? That wasn't in anywhere.
Just kidding.
That was a mistake. And there's all this feedback. And I'm sure,
mistake.
Kyle would Kyle Norton be like, oh no, you got to just tell it to don't assume anything. Give it a good prompt. My prompt's 6 pages long. And in my 6-page prompt, I tell it not to make any assumptions. It's like, it doesn't work. It still makes assumptions. Like assumptions, it is a probabilistic exercise. It's not, we think of it as this all-knowing, sentient, completely intelligent thing. It's not. It's just really good at making us believe that it is. Every time I do an update, so first I have this whole series of prompts, right? This is what you should include. This is what you should not include. This is the format of the thing. It changes the format almost, not every time, almost every time. Almost every time. So then I'm like, hey, you forgot this section. It's like, oh, sorry, let me correct it. And it puts that section back, but changes everything else. And so that's why, this metaphor, and everybody's like, you know what? It's just the same thing as training my former data entry clerk, whatever Asa was saying last week, right? It's just the same thing as training an entry-level employee. No, it's not. No, it's not. An entry-level employee isn't a sociopath. AI lies to your face and has no moral compass, does not care at all. Hey, the sky is blue. No, the sky is purple. No, it's blue. You just said it's blue. No, actually, okay, you're right. You're right. It is blue. Like, it doesn't, 4 + 4 is 12. No, it's not. It's 8. Oh, right. Yeah, you're right. It is 8. And you do that it's main coupled with this thing of where it's trying to tell you how great you are all the time. It's like, hey, I have this relationship problem. I think I should just slap that person in the face. That's not aggression. That's standing up for yourself. Good
That's
job.
having a backbone.
Right. All right. I decided I didn't want to slap that person in the face. That's not being a coward. That's self-discipline. You're like, whatever I do, you're just going to tell me it's great. Anyway, long story long is that I think the metaphor is wrong, because we act like these are humans that we are correcting and developing and training, and they lose bits as they gain bits. It's like this weird, it's not a good metaphor.
You referenced the study that came out of Apple. There's this interesting spectrum, actually. So on one side, you have these Apple guys that came out with some research and said, essentially, these models aren't developing a first principles based understanding of what you are talking to it about, no matter how much you talk to it about that thing. What it's doing is it's probabilistic. So it's just guessing the best next thing, and it guesses really well. But that is a fundamental difference, right? When you're training a human being, they're developing over time a first principles based understanding of something. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you had Ilya, who used to be one of the OpenAI co-founders. He was at UFT, and he gave this analogy where he said, "You've got a biological computer, which is your brain, and we're creating a digital computer." And in essence, he believes there's nothing that we should feel is not possible to replicate on the digital computer side from this biological computer. We should be able to replicate 100% of it. We aren't there yet, but we will be. These are two very different ends of the spectrum, right? Like if you believe Ilya, you're preparing for a world in which you have these PhD level employees running around your company through ChatGPT, and if you are on the other end of the spectrum, you're thinking very differently. So it is interesting. You can't trust it. So for a little bit of time, AJ, Bobby still has a job because you need somebody to double check the stuff.
Well,
I mean, go ahead.
I was just trying to look for it and I couldn't find it. But the most hilarious situation where, to Sam's point, I had a chart with our revenue numbers, and I was trying to add another bar chart without having to build a spreadsheet that would give the forecast for what the rest of the year and then the number. I was like, put this number and a green chart right at the end of the chart. And it comes back and it has the chart, and plop just like randomly, haphazardly is this bar chart with the number that I said on top of it. And I was like, whoa, that's not at the end of the x-axis. Can you like put that at the end of the axis? Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I'll try again. And then it does it. It says, here's a better version. And then it's like put it even further to the left
Yeah.
in a totally more random spot. And I'm like, why are you gaslighting me right now? I am tired of this.
And I think what's interesting, AJ, is that for a lot of time, or at least even now, I would imagine, a lot of people, when they're interacting with AI and it's not going their way, they believe it's their defect. Maybe they aren't good. Their skills of using AI are not A plus yet. So of course, I'm getting less than the best results because like I haven't understood how to use it well enough. And I think there's something more fundamental, right? Like right now, the model isn't there yet. And so HubSpot has time, Salesforce has time. All these different things have time. The question becomes, if the model can is this a base architecture level problem with the models, which will never go away? There'll always be some level of hallucination and those type of things. What does that world look like? And then, or do they get past that? And then what does that world look like? That's very different. If you play out.
I think it's an arc. I think it's exactly what you said, Asid. I think what do I know? I don't know poo-poo, right? But it feels like an architecture problem. It feels like that is not how they're designed. They're not designed to be correct. This is what Ben Evans said. He said, like, when I need a correct answer, I don't need an approximate answer. Like there's an answer to this question, and I need what the answer is. And I feel like we're caught up in this frenzy. And I'm not trying to be like a doomist or, some kind of anti-futurist. I believe in progress, but I think we're caught up in this frenzy that like AI can do everything. And Ilya is telling us that it's going to replace. And what's the difference between biology and computers? It's like, well, computers operate on 2 inputs and biology operates on 4. So the level of complexity of a 4-input system is probably much, much greater than a 2-input system. So I would imagine it's going to be some time before, a computer replicates what happens in the human brain that's developed over millennia. But I think, anyway, my point is like, I think that it's fundamentally like an architecture problem, that like, they're not designed to be correct. And I think we think that they are. And I think that that's like a really big fundamental problem.
Because computers are. That's the whole issue, is that computers are deterministic. They're binary. They operate in like not proximity, in absolute. And we're designing a system inside that absolute. And we want it to, but we're trying to design for human emotions and feelings, which are not exact as well. So it's this weird zone that I think, have you guys noticed that hallucinations have remained relatively the same, or have they gotten better in the last year and a half?
Oh, from like, let's say the first version of ChatGPT, it's far better,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think the question people are asking is that there were obviously significant improvements that they were able to generate by advancing these models. Like ChatGPT 4 was so much better than what we first got, right? Like it was significantly better. And so, but is there just an upper limit? And then what do we do with that? Because we have, as humans, like think of self-driving is a really interesting example. We know that when humans drive cars, there's a certain amount of accidents and deaths that will happen through human error. We still give licenses and allow people to drive. But when we are testing autonomous driving in cars, our bar is higher. If the death rate and accident rate is the same, we're not okay with that. It really freaks us out. One accident by Waymo freaks us out.
Yeah.
And I think we have a different standard for machines, firstly, and the standard is higher, meaning that any level of hallucination is going to cause some trepidation in how we implement these in our organizations. Because as you bring them from grunt work to real valuable work within an organization, what's your tolerance for error? And some organizations cannot tolerate error in some areas. Like, what do you
Asid,
do
I
with
make stuff up all the time and you guys are still friends with me. This is a perfect example.
And it's also to your point, I think one of the things they articulated in that paper is that more data doesn't necessarily make, you're like, well, the answer must be wear the Johnny Ive thing around my neck all the time, record every second of my life, and then it will have full context. And the reason that it's hallucinating a little bit is because I haven't given it full context. And the answer for these models, at least, is no, full context could actually degrade the quality of the output and degrade the quality of the model, which is a
Which is
problem as
very
well.
opposite to a human, right? Like if you
Yes.
give me more time to understand more about your business, I can be a better advisor to your business. Like the more time you give me, actually the tension is that Sam wants an answer from me tomorrow, but if you gave me till next week, my answer would be better. But we define perfect as the best answer I can give you in a constrained timeline with the information I have, right?
Are you ready to level up your go-to-market strategy for 2026? Then don't miss GTM 2025, the only B2B tech conference exclusively for go-to-market executives. Join 1,000 other revenue leaders this September 23rd to 25th in Washington, D.C. for an exclusive executive-only experience. This 3-day event is hyper-focused on connection, strategy, and execution. Expect hands-on workshops, in-depth strategy sessions, and curated opportunities to build relationships with VPs, CXOs, and founders facing the same challenges you are. You'll stress test your GTM approach, align your team, and leave with real, actionable insights from top-performing leaders. Don't miss the must-attend conference designed to help you boost go-to-market results in 2026. Visit attendgtm.com, that is ATTENDGTM.com to secure your spot today, and don't forget to use the code TOPLINE for 10% off your GA ticket.
There's this other thing that I think a model doesn't do, which goes to what you were saying, its sycophantic nature, which I've been thinking about a lot recently. You know, sometimes you've done a bunch of research and you want to write something. And you start writing it and you're using ChatGPT and going back and forth and flushing your idea out. The model never tells you you're just not there yet. You haven't done enough work. It just kind of like tinkers. Like it'll give you a lot of tinkering, but it'll never be like, dude, you got to go do some more reading.
What if you just ask it though? Haven't you just asked it?
It's still not the same way. Like it'll be like, oh, try this, do this. But sometimes you just got to step away and do more work. And it doesn't really say that ever.
Just
to
tell me
anyone.
I suck. Please just
I
tell
heard
me I
Ezra
suck.
Klein talk about this, and I thought it was a really sharp point because then I thought about myself with it, and it's really it once told me my writing was really bad, like the quality of writing, but other than that, it's never told me I'm not there yet. But there have been many editorials where I felt I wasn't there yet, and I had to pivot.
Yeah.
But it was never the source of that.
I do have a really interesting AI use case that I used for the first time this week, and I want to share it because if there's other like thinkers like me that are looking for different use cases, this was a great one. So we had this management offsite. Part of what we're doing is visioning. I was in a coffee meeting last week and I was showing someone deep research who had never seen it. And I was like, I just asked what should be the next product for QuotaPath, but I asked GPT-4 like write a prompt for deep research so that it gives the 6-page Kyle Norton prompt. And then I did that for deep research, and it came up with a 22-page memo. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I shared it with my chief product officer. He took Notebook LLM and turned it into a podcast. So it's a 36-minute podcast with 2 co-hosts talking about this memo, this deep research memo. And I went for a run listening to it, and it is actually really interesting because it's an objective point of view on the memo, and it talks about the different recommendations, but using another AI filter to talk about the memo, which I just thought was really interesting. And it helped me like frame up the conversation in this week in a different way versus just like kind of a bland memo, which I
think the challenge is if you think of places where it can make you more productive, right? You can go from ideation to prototyping immediately right now. You can go from idea to build a prototype.
But you need filters. You need some level of filtering.
But there are areas of knowledge work where even though it can integrate into HubSpot, and if I'm HubSpot, I'm petrified right now. I am, because I know the HubSpot team and Salesforce team believes that AI will get far better. And if it does relegate them in my mind to just a clunky database that no one cares about, the back layer of the system that no one really cares about. I think that's the risk for them.
Do you know how I know you're right, Asit, on this? Do you know how I know you're actually right on this? And I don't know about Salesforce, but I will say, without naming any names, I've talked to enough people at HubSpot who have said their AI roadmap changes on a daily basis. That is a great indication of a lack of clarity.
But that in this moment, I look at as good leadership. Like I heard Lemkin say that Yamini was very transparent about the fact we're very excited and we're very scared at the same time. And I think that's the right mind frame to be in if you're HubSpot and if you're Salesforce. I think I'm far more bearish on Salesforce long term, because I think that agents did nothing for their growth.
They came out with a strong point of view because Benioff, as an entrepreneur, I need to have a lightning strike point of view, which was great for top of the funnel marketing. Nothing on substantive actual product.
Yeah, there's no accelerant in revenue so far for them, and they won't.
I thought they were saying, educate me. I thought they were saying that they're like a huge portion of their revenue, or that AI-driven revenue is significant. Is that not true?
But net revenue is where it was. Their growth rate hasn't accelerated past where it was. It's like in the 7-8% range, right? So they're like a slow growing business right now, and they're huge. And there is a integration that is hard to displace with something like Salesforce. Like if you're Ford using Salesforce, it's not easy to switch. But over time, do you see that stickiness just go away? And that if the company can't grow, it just changes the value of the organization in the markets, and that's a tough spot to be in if you're Salesforce. Sam, this made one really think about Moats again, because within this update that OpenAI had, there were 2 things that they did that I thought were interesting. One was they integrated into all these databases that you have that we just discussed: bots, Dropbots, G Suite, etc. On the other side, they introduced this meeting tracker, a transcription tool, kind of like Otter or what Notion has right now. And enterprise search, that first bucket, is a multi-billion-dollar market right now. Today, Glean, which is one of the leaders in that space, announced a raise at a $7.2 billion valuation. You've got many other companies, including Yext, by the way, was playing in that space, and they just jumped in. OpenAI jumps in over here, and it's scary for those companies. Same thing for Otter. And so, what's defendable? Is there anything like does a moat exist for 99% of the world anymore? Like, what are your thoughts on that? It feels like nothing's defendable and there's no such thing as a moat for most of us.
Well, I don't know if do you believe that? I guess my take on it is
no.
Product excellence is still a moat, right? That like many companies, including Google had, Google Wave that was supposed to be a Facebook disruptor many years ago. Very rich companies, of which OpenAI is one now, can afford to launch salvos in 50 different directions in an attempt to take as much market share as possible, understanding internally that most of them will not work, but a few of them will become Gmail and a few of them will become Google Maps, and
Google
most of them won't.
Google Plus.
Google Plus. But Google Wave was a different thing. Google Wave was like a new, anyway.
I remember Google Wave's launch. It was a major launch. I couldn't tell you exactly what it did.
Right. So I admire OpenAI's ambition. I still tend to think that dedicated use cases with a product manager
Focus.
that all they do is, live and breathe and die on this one use case are still better positioned than one would think. It's the classic innovator's dilemma that, like, Google, why can't Google do that? Why can't Microsoft do that? And it's true that Microsoft and Google do a lot, but they don't do everything. And there are still other opportunities for companies to be excellent in their product execution, as a consequence, have some kind of defensibility. That's one thing I think. But I think the other thing I think is what we've talked about, which is, listen, distribution is a moat. OpenAI building the habit of spending time with ChatGPT every single day, which we all do at this point, that is a moat. And, the hundreds of millions of users that use it every single day, that is definitely a moat. And that's why everybody's so bullish on influencer-driven marketing and brands like Topline, because everybody's attention is scarce. And the thing that is defensible is having a large owned audience that you built organically and intentionally over a long period of time, I would think.
I think trust and brand are very defendable modes. I think those are things to invest in for sure. Okay. There's another thing that's playing out that is quite fascinating. And so I heard Harry Stebbings, actually, no, I read a post that he made a week ago, but I've heard him talk about this on his podcast as well, which is basically that companies in the Valley have started working 7 days a week. And if anyone wants to compete with them, he was targeting European funders at the time. If you want to compete with them, that's the work ethic that you have to match. Now, Lemkin has been talking about this, but I have personal experience with this as well. I have noticed a shift here. I do a lot more meetings on Saturday and Sunday, not at me asking clients, but them asking me. And I'll say yes, because it's easy for me, but I've never in my career had those requests before. Want to just meet Saturday afternoon? That's interesting. I've noticed companies being back in the office 5 days a week and requiring people in office 5 days a week. This is in San Francisco and New York. And it just makes me think about two things. A, how interesting it is that we've shifted so significantly from a few years ago where the conversation was work-life balance, mental health, and now it's this aggressive work ethic. And also, what this means for people that aren't young or don't have families. It's kind of interesting how for the last, during the downturn, the complaint used to be from the elders that the young ones don't work hard enough. And now the young ones are working in such a way that the elders are like, this ain't inclusive enough. I just thought that's really interesting. AJ, what are your thoughts on this shift?
Well, I haven't noticed people requesting Saturday or Sunday meetings, but we have a different type of company. I work Saturday and Sunday, but I don't have meetings. I don't know where he's getting his data from. I'm going to assume that he's right on this, and I'm just not in those circles because I truthfully have not heard. We've talked about this a few times over the last several years of this just kind of push and push and push. And I still can't tell if this was just a trend in a couple companies, an anecdote, or a real trend.
This is real.
Of momentum.
One of our biggest accounts of the year was a client that was introduced to me on Friday evening. He texted me and said, can we meet tomorrow? We met on Saturday. They signed by Monday. And now it's like we've built hundreds of thousands with them. Like that was a PE-owned business. It wasn't in San Francisco or New York. And this business on Saturdays with a AI company doing 100 million in ARR, and the CEO, she requested it. I've noticed this shift. It is happening.
Well, what I think is also a piece of this is like if I'm a founder starting a new company, in a lot of ways, engineers or people in general are a commodity, right? Like that's if we're building, like take Kyle Norton. I know we've talked about him the last couple episodes, take his process. He's built an AI process. He doesn't necessarily want his individual contributors coming up with the process itself or to have these tools, but he's giving them all of these tools. So you basically have taken all of these disciplines where marketing, you knew everything about marketing, but now you might not know anything. And the only way you're going to catch up is you have to put the work into it to catch up. I have a hunch that as founders, you're looking with the number of tech layoffs that have happened, with where the market is, with just the general feeling, and you're like, I'm going to take advantage of this by being able to build a moat, a competitive moat, because we're going to outwork everyone. And I appreciate that. That's the culture you're going to build. I am curious to see what the sustainability of that culture will be over a long period of time.
That I think is an interesting question. Sam, what do you think about sustainability of something like this? What do you think this means for people that have families? Why do you think it's happening?
I think we are participating in the market. This is the market at work. It's happening because life was easy and now it's hard. And we have this on the docket to talk about markets, but let's connect the topics since AJ has a hard stop. Jamin Ball said that net new ARR growth is down 30% compared year over year for publicly traded, technology businesses. I was at a dinner, which I wrote about last week in Denver for our CRO summit with a bunch of great operators. We asked, what's the number one challenge you're facing? Everybody says pipeline. What is my takeaway from everything that I'm seeing? What am I looking at in myself? How am I working? Am I working harder? Yes, I am working harder. I am up, I'm in Barcelona. I am up late. I am, much healthier than I've been because I just do not have a margin for error to drink often. I saw the Lovable founders talking about, maybe they were commenting to Harry Stebbings or talking to somebody saying they're in the office all the time, not a lot of alcohol, a lot of focus on exercise and personal productivity. What is this a function of? This is a function of GTM efficiency, right? This is a function that CAC is up, that growth is harder. And, the three of us on this call, we want to win, well, listen, I do want to win. And I'm also not going to give this everything I got, I'm going to give this everything I got. I don't want to be average. And I think a lot of people feel like that at this point. And I also think this is how markets work. Markets, we studied, I took this class in high school, World Civ, and it integrates markets and arts and history and culture. It shows how all of these things are connected, that what the Romans were wearing relates to what they were writing about, relates to the wars that they were fighting and whether or not they were in Gaul or somewhere else. And my point is that the vibe shift coincides with interest rates and coincides with CAC being more expensive and growth being harder to come by. And I think it relates to probably wokeism and some level of, DEI emphasis. And I think a lot of people are saying, I want to win. I want to build a company that wins and I want to succeed. And it's not that I don't care about people with families. I have a family. It's not that I don't care about, work-life balance, but I want to solve for winning.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot more fun. I've got, Austin, you always talk about what you got, 30 years, 40 years more left, more of work,
33.
33. I don't want Pavilion I just don't want to be average, and I don't want this to be the final word on Pavilion, which is, whatever growth rate we've achieved over the last couple of years. And I'm going to spend our balance sheet and I'm going to invest in growth and I'm going to make the changes that we have to make because I want to win. And I am tired of mediocrity. And I think we all are. That's what I think. I think it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
The one thing I will say, and just add to the point around the Jamin Ball's comment on year over year growth for Q1 was down 30%. And I know I commented this, Austin, is just, it's unevenness, right? The private companies like the Cursors of the world are not counted into that. They're at 500 million in ARR. They just raised 900 million at probably a ridiculous valuation. I don't even know, 10 billion, I'm sure, plus. But there's only few and far between people working at those companies, those winning companies. They are known because they had 30 people at 100 million or whatever. And that's the thing, is where we have had, you know, the people that have been a part of some of the stories, the snowflakes or the other types of companies, because those were thousands and thousands of people. HubSpot or whatever the case may be. Today, you're not going to know a lot of those people that are at those very high flying companies because they're so small and efficient to where they were previously.
I think the bar is so much higher. Sam is so right about that.
Yeah.
Like the bar is just so much higher in terms of what it takes to win. And there's anyone who wants to win has to then up their game.
Put
and
in the
part of
work.
the game is output, right? Is like, how much do you work? Now, I think what that means for every person is different. Like, I think, Sam, I don't know if you made the point earlier on the spot or offline, but there's a difference if you're a founder, CEO who's coding a product at the seed stage versus somebody who's at the growth stage and is a different sort of CEO. Like, there are nuances here, but we're all putting in more than we traditionally did because it just takes a lot more. And I think part of this ties into this idea of what's defendable, right? Like the pace of releasing product and moving forward has increased in the market. Your advantage is just loosely held. And so you just have to keep moving forward. And when you compare these public and private market companies, I think this is one of the reasons why these private companies are doing so well. Like, they have matched this work ethic. I think Windsurf CEO say something fascinating. They're like, why was GitHub on everyone's mind a year ago as the thing? And now it's like behind and all of you are in the lead. And he's like, listen, there's a fundamental difference between a big company and a small company. In a big company, if you're a product person or you're an engineer and you ship something, you get reallocated somewhere. You do that here, you get fired. There's no place to hide. And we're trying to win. And we're so lean that there's literally no place to hide. And I think that's kind of interesting and fascinating. It's why, like, I'm a little bit more bearish about the big companies these days than I was for a while, because there are just systemic issues within them.
You're finally coming around, Asid.
Yeah,
we talked about this last year. We're like, who's going to win in AI go to market? I don't think it's going to be the companies that have already been around. I don't think it's Gong. I don't think it's Outreach. I don't think it's SalesLoft.
Gong is stuck. Outreach, I don't think is relevant anymore.
I have a random metaphor, but I just honestly interviewing Eric Simons a couple weeks ago, the Bolt CEO, was really eye-opening for me. And he had this concept of the pain cave. And we were talking about how he'd been working on Bolt since 2017 through 2024, 7 years of very little momentum or progress. And then finally they hit it. And we said, how do you maintain that level of motivation? And he said, well, I go to the pain cave every day. And the point is, he pushes himself physically, and that teaches him how to have the discipline and the stamina to win when it comes to business, because he's constantly doing things that he's uncomfortable with. And I reflected on my own personal fitness. And the reality is I'm in pretty good shape, but for a very long time, since I ran my last marathon, and really since 2018, I used to go to a running class twice a week in New York City with my good friend who passed away. But and every week, twice a week, we would do, what did we do? I think we did 8x400s, 5x800s. And this was unpleasant. This was not pleasant. And my VO2 max was like in the 50s. And since then, have I run a lot? I've run a lot. But almost every time when I get out there and lace up my sneakers, I say, you know what? I think I'm going to take it easy today. And and so ultimately you watch your fitness deteriorate. And pretty soon, before you know it, you're running 9-minute miles when you used to run 7:15 or 7:30. And my point is, I liken that to business. Like, showing up is not enough. And so now, I'm working with a trainer and stuff, and I'm constantly doing things that I don't want to do, that are uncomfortable. And when you work out in a gym with a trainer, it's very different than when you're working out by yourself. And you're like, you know what? That's good. I did 5 reps. That was good. Whereas the trainer's like, keep going. What are you doing? And I feel like that's the lesson I'm trying to take. I am trying to put myself in more physically uncomfortable positions, exactly to Eric's point, to train myself to have more energy and more stamina to build Pavilion for the next period of time.
That's
And
a CEO perspective, Sam. I'm curious, do you expect the same from your team?
I don't know. I hope so. I mean, I want people that want to win. I talk about him all the time, and he's very proud of how often I talk about him. But I do talk about him a lot. Sam Slevin. He's just like the perfect employee. He is the perfect employee because this dude wants to win more than anybody I've ever met, but he's not a founder. He doesn't want your job. He just wants to work for you 100 hours a week. And knowing that he's out there makes me want to hire more people like that for my company. And I think I've never felt more acutely this idea that A players hire A players and B players hire C players. And we talked about it last week and in weeks prior. But when you hire people that are uninspired to allocate capital, it's not good. It's not good because they hire resistance, a person that has a 7 out of 10 on a level of motivation will hire a 6 out of 10, and that person will hire 5 out of 10. And pretty soon the feedback you're getting in your ENPS or whatever is a bunch of people that you don't really want to work with in the first place.
Yeah.
Wait, Sam, question for you. Uninspired to allocate capital. Can you tell me what that means?
If somebody is uninspired, then you don't want them to allocate capital.
Okay, so the person themselves is uninspiring. They shouldn't be a capital allocator. They should not be deploying.
It's the union boss hiring more union people, and then they're going to tell the one guy that's not in the union or gal, stop working so hard, slow down. Yeah. You're making us look bad.
I think this is this shift that has happened where, and I do think it's interest rates one and then AI two, like the combination of those two has accelerated this. In a lot of industries, the bar has always been an insane work ethic. Like I remember I went for my cousin's wedding to Italy last year or 2 years ago now, I forget.
I remember that.
He's a MD at Blackstone. He runs their commercial real estate practice, and he's like mid-40s now. And I was talking to him, and he's like, I'm starting to think about taking Sundays off. And I wake up with cold sweats. And I was like, oh, interesting. I'm starting to think about it because I'm getting married for the second time. I think it'll help this marriage. And I just thought that was the most fascinating comment. My older brother, wealth manager, works till 1 a.m. every single day. Now, I don't do that. Like, I'm not saying we all have to, but the work ethic part of winning requires work ethic, requires a certain amount of hours, right? And then it requires you to be in a certain mind frame during those hours, because if you're grumpy and disgruntled putting those hours in, then you don't want to do substandard work anyway. And you need to do the things you need to do to be in the right mind frame to make great decisions and come up with innovative ideas and be super creative and be able to do it for 10 hours, 11 hours a day, 6 days a week. Like, I think that is the bar. And if you aren't willing to do that, like there are a lot of people that are like, I can't work those hours, I have a young family. I do think that is now the market is in a state where you probably have to go to one of the bigger companies. I don't think that was the advice I would have given 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. But now, if you can't do that, you're probably better off at a big company where you can hide a little bit more.
And I would ask, if you can't do that, that's totally fine. But I really don't need I saw somebody on LinkedIn shame related to the Harry Stebbings post, and this person said, "Shame on you, Harry Stebbings. We don't need this hustle culture." You know what? I don't need the anti-hustle culture. I work however hard you want, but don't tell the rest of us to not work so hard. I'm sorry. Everybody should do what they want to do, and let the markets determine how we're valued.
I think that counter pressure within organizations is just not going to be tolerated. Where in your ENPS, it's like we work too hard, we push too much, the person's too intense. It's like, man, you shouldn't really.
The pace is frantic. I'm like, it's not frantic. It's just. I'm
going to
put it feels frantic to you.
So, as someone that's about to go over "quote unquote" ENPS surveys and how we're doing departmental, I actually am
good use of your ELT team's time.
We're not going over ENPS surveys. We're going over. To be clear, we rated how we're doing from a department standpoint, and then we're comparing that to how the leaders rated the departments. So we're actually doing something fairly productive, Asid, but okay.
Yes. Time well spent.
But I'm going to push back because here's what we hear around some of our departments. We're over capacity. We're burning out. We're doing too much. And what I see that I zero in on a leadership challenge, on a communication, on a clarity of role, of goals, of accountability, of trust. Those are the things that I zero in on. And so they're good proximity markers to what's really going on. Our entire organization, of course, does not feel like that, but there are parts of our organization that do feel like they're overwhelmed.
Can I push you on that?
Sure.
Sometimes we are doing what would technically be, like I'm looking at my list right now. Objectively, this is too much.
Yeah.
It is. It's an insane amount of
All
stuff.
three of us are trying to launch a brand and have a day job.
Another, like a media account, like it's too much,
Yeah.
but it's the right amount because this is what we need to do to win. Like, you know what I mean? Like it is too much objectively, but it's also just the right amount of stuff. And there will be days where you feel bad about it and you feel a little bit tired and all of that, but you still gotta like get past it, stand up and go and attack. Like there's no other way, right? Like
we're on the same
when I
side
get that
here.
complaint, I get very confused. I'm like, okay, so what do I do about that? You want us to do less and you lose your job? Like,
that was my question to Sam. How much does he expect that level? And I think his answer was on point with A players and hiring A players. But I'm saying as leaders, it is okay. We are going to it's our businesses. We're going to work as hard as it is required to work. And that's all the time. That's just the reality of the situation. But I think it's on us as leaders to take a step back to just truly understand where do we place the bet and the chips on, and that was my sustainability question. Is this
my bar is as high for the team as for me? I'll give you an example. We had a presentation for a client a few months ago, and the presentation was the next morning, and the team was going to show me what they had prepared at 9 p.m. at night. This is a team that has young families, people in their late 30s, early 40s. They showed it 9 p.m. I was like, guys, this isn't good enough. You have to redo it, which basically meant you can't go home. You have to do it. You have to work all night on this, and we still have to present.
Was that an executive team, or was that your just
standard like team?
Oh.
And there wasn't a complaint. There wasn't like, they were like, yep, it made sense and they got it done. And it's like, but like, I'm not sending you a special cookie the next day because you did that. Like that's the work. And if you want to do great things, that's what everybody has to do. Like, I actually don't agree with different bars for different levels. Like you kind of need everyone to want to win. And if you want to win, you got to work hard sometimes.
Well, I was saying I have the bar high from my management team, but from a leadership standpoint, I expect delegation from them down to their team. I'm not going to skip level and go to a CS and say, what are you working on? Those aren't the right things. That's not my responsibility. If my management team isn't doing that correctly, then that's a much bigger problem.
If your management team is pushing the CSMs to work really hard and the CSMs are like feeling disgruntled because of it, who's right, who's wrong?
Well, the CSMs in that are wrong.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is going to start changing? Sam, you're sitting in Europe. That post was a Europe versus the US and specifically the hotbeds of tech, New York and San Francisco, specifically the Valley versus Europe. Do you think you understand Europe a little bit right now. Do you think there'll be a shift there, or Europe will still work like Europe has traditionally worked?
I think there already is a shift.
Interesting.
But I don't think it's regional. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm stupid. I find that there's pockets of people that are motivated in this way.
That was such a sincere comment to yourself.
I'm an idiot.
Such an earnest nature to how you said it.
My point is, like, I think there's people that are busting their butts everywhere. Mm-hmm. Now maybe everybody's going to move to San Francisco, but I definitely think there's people here in Barcelona. Jan Kessler is really, works at Preply, is this leader in go-to-market engineering, go-to-market AI, like really sophisticated, knows everybody. A lot of the people that I've gotten to know around Europe are super sophisticated. Now, do they end up moving to San Francisco? I think it's interesting. Kyle's moving to San Francisco from Toronto. So do I think Europe's going to change? I don't know. we have a tendency to always live in the present and live in the future and never the present. It's like, what's going to happen, as opposed to what's in front of us right now and what's the game on the field. Right now, the game on the field is I'm flying to New York to host this Pavilion Gold dinner in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to only be there for 2 weeks because I feel like I have to be there. And if I chose to move to Barcelona, then I need to be willing to get on a plane and take short trips, even if it means hours and hours of travel, because in person is really important. So I don't know if that answers your question.
That kind of answers it. Okay. This has been a fun episode.
This was great. Yeah, we got some debate. We got some conversations. We got some jokes.
Got it all. What are we doing? Shout out or a question?
Shout-outs. Let's do shout outs. AJ.
Why do you always choose me first? You do this all the time, and I am so frustrated. I'm going to give a shout out to my daughter's flag football team. They won the championship. They beat their third grade girls, and they beat a fourth grade team.
What?
And I'm going to give a massive shout out to their coach, AJ Bruno.
Shout out to your daughter. They beat a fourth grade team as third graders. That's gangster.
Yeah. Well, no, didn't you hear the actual shout out? It was to their coach, who is me. I'm their coach. We crushed it. It was the double reverse. And my daughter scored 4 out of 5 touchdowns for the game. Yeah, she was
good for her.
She was crazy. So congrats to Nora Bruno and her flag football team.
That's fantastic. I'll go next. You can wrap us up. Shout out to AJ and I taught a class together yesterday at Pavilion in the Enterprise Go-to-Market School, I believe. And so shout out to everybody that attended. I thought it was actually really fun to teach the class together. We combined hiring and compensation and commissions, basically. And made it far more interactive than just going through a deck. And it seems like the people that attended really enjoyed it. We really enjoyed it. And it's always fun to spend time with people that are investing in bettering themselves. It is always inspiring to be around that energy.
Did we get our NPS score back yet, Austin?
I'm pretty sure it's 5 out of 5.
Yeah. It was great. It was a ton of fun. Shout out to Austin, who was just like, nope, we're doing it live. And it was so engaging and so different than anything. It was like a live Topline episode, Sam.
How many people were on?
30?
30?
Yeah, 30.
All right, that's cool. Yeah. I'm going to give a shout out to Andrea, our friend Andrea Kell, the CRO Help Scout. She gave a presentation at CRO Summit on the shift that Help Scout did to usage-based pricing. And it was so much detail and so much actionable information. It's exactly what you want from these events. You don't want BS. You want like, here's exactly what I did and how I did it. She did a great job. So good job, Andrea. Thank you so much.
She's undeniable.
She's pretty good. All right, folks, This has been episode 113 of Topline. Stay tuned for great new things coming from the Topline media brand over the next couple of months, but we're really excited. And thank you for listening. Give us 5 stars in Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to Topline. New episodes come out every Sunday. If you like what you heard today, subscribe so you never miss an episode, leave a 5-star review, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to join our Topline Slack channel to connect with us and discuss the topics we cover with other listeners. Click the link in the show notes. Lastly, if you're interested in joining Pavilion, you can learn more about membership at joinpavilion.com/membership. Thanks again for listening.